I've been in the gym, like I said, I've been into fitness, but I've never challenged myself to get outside of like a really good comfort zone. And so that was it. That was the journey. The journey was about exploring that. And you may think it's a physical journey, being a bodybuilder and lifting weights and all those kind of things. But the reality is more time is spent outside of the gym than in the gym.
Mhm.
And you know this, you work with all these people. There's so much that goes on in the head that gets in the way of us and our journey and our goals. And that actually is overcoming that.
Hey, Tash, it's Audley, Stephenson, and welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing goal is to inspire our listeners to live their best audacious life ever. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the podcast and really prioritizing your personal growth and development by being here. So it's very much appreciated. Now, mental toughness, or at least true mental toughness, is like a diamond forged under intense pressure. Just as a diamond is created from carbon subjected to extreme heat and pressure deep within the earth, mental toughness is developed through overcoming doubts and pushing ourselves beyond the limits we once believed were possible. Just as a diamond emerges as a precious gemstone, shining brightly and unyielding in the face of adversity, true mental toughness allows us to shine in the darkest of moments, resilient and unbreakable. Dan Storey is a personal trainer and mental toughness coach dedicated to helping individuals push their limits and live above average. With a background in bodybuilding and a focus on discipline and mindset, Dan brings a wealth of experience to our conversation today, and was really happy to have him here. His expertise in mental toughness and discipline aligns perfectly with our theme of making tough decisions. His journey from average to bodybuilder demonstrates the power of challenging oneself and pushing beyond our comfort zones. So now that we're all set, let's turn to our conversation with Dan. Enjoy. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. Appreciate you taking the time to be here, man.
Excited to be here and loving the energy you're bringing to the show. So hopefully I can contribute as well.
Thank you. No, it does. The idea of encouraging individuals to live that best audacious life that we talk about often on this podcast, it really does excite me, and because of the possibilities and the things that we can do with our lives, and it really makes sense having you part of the conversation, because I know you really focus on encouraging individuals to live above average, which I think resonates deeply and is aligned with what we do here. And so maybe as a starting point, Dan, I can get you to sort of explain to our audience a little bit about what you do and how you got to do the work that you're doing now.
Cool. Yeah. So I've had a fairly traditional journey. I had a job, I have a family, I have a little 4-year-old daughter now, and I kind of made my way through the career element, and wind up. I remember I was wound up on the beach in England. There's not many great beaches in England. This was not one of the good ones, and there with the family hanging out. It was sunshine for a bit. And then the family took a photo, and I got home and I saw this photo, and I thought that looks very average. And the word I use is average, because we talk about the trap of average.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm someone who's always played sport, right? I've always played sport. I've always been in the gym, and this photo was me, and I had a dad bod, right? Everybody knows what a dad bod is. It's that point where you've got a career, you've got a family, and you go to the gym and you do a little bit, but you don't take it too seriously. And I kind of caught myself saying, you talk about this stuff a lot, but you're not doing it. And this for me, it was, I'd heard that before and I'd said it to others, but for some reason, this one photo hit me in the face and asked me the question, said, well, what are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. So I took on a challenge. I said, right, I'm going to become a bodybuilder, which was insane, right? I just absolutely insane. And I said, I'm going to go from dad bod and see if I can put myself into this kind of fittest, best condition of my life, and then did that. And I've been in the gym, like I said, I've been into fitness, but I've never challenged myself to get outside of like a really good comfort zone. And so that was it. That was the journey. The journey was about exploring that. And you may think it's a physical journey, being a bodybuilder and lifting weights and all those kind of things, but the reality is more time is spent outside of the gym than in the gym. Mm-hmm. And you know this, you work with all these people. There's so much that goes on in the head that gets in the way of us and our journey and our goals. And that actually is overcoming that. That is, for me, it's a concept, it's a combination of mental toughness and
Sure.
goal setting and just positive thinking and just sticking to it until you can reach a goal. So yeah, that's kind of what I talk about now. And I still do the day job. I still train salespeople largely and convince them of convincing others to get outside of average. And now I'm trying to do it
Sure.
for myself as well.
And I mean, I certainly appreciate the journey, and it's funny how it's these little things that can spark us, right? And so in your case, you saw this photo and it shifted your whole world. Um, Prior to that, was bodybuilding ever a consideration for you?
No, not at all. My little brother had done it years and years ago, and I
Okay.
cheered him on from the sidelines. My sport actually was American football. I always played American football, and being a British guy playing American football, we're not very good, but I gave it a good effort. But for me, that was fun. Like that was my Sundays. That was hanging out with the team and having that good camaraderie. But so this was different. I mean, it was weird because kind of similar time to COVID, having a family, couldn't take out
Right.
entire days to go and play a sport. So the question was, okay, well, how can I do something different? How can I channel an aspect of my fitness side, but also the competitive element? And I don't know, I just got this idea. It came into my head, and I thought, all right, let's try that. And
I love it.
as soon as you set that goal, like you said, had it ever been a consideration? No. So
Right.
immediately my brain was like, you're never going to do this. You're an idiot.
Of course. That internal stuff starts happening right in your head.
All right, exactly. So yeah, that was it. It was basically a journey to deal with that kind of inner voice and that kind of element of doubt along the way,
Right.
and say to people that I was a bodybuilder, even though I'd never been a bodybuilder, even before I was a bodybuilder, right? Saying that and trying to act as if until I eventually, made it happen and stepped on stage. So it's a fun journey.
Okay, so kind of give me a picture of like when you say you became a bodybuilder, like how far did it go, or how big did you become? Not physically big, but in terms of how big did you get in the bodybuilding space?
So I'm a natural bodybuilder, which means
Okay,
the only supplements I can use are the naturally approved versions, right? I don't have any chemical assistance of any kind. And there's a very clear distinction. It's not that I'm against that. I think it's, everyone for what works. But for me, I'm just, I'm 44 years old. I don't want to be putting stuff into my body. I want to last a
sure,
little bit longer, and
sure,
I don't want
sure.
to burn up before I get there. So how far did I get? Well, I did a few shows. Okay. I did a few shows. This was last year. And the
You
first
got up on
show,
stage. You got up on stage with flexing muscles.
flexing muscles, fake tan, the dodgy shorts, the whole
Jeez.
shebang, right? The whole shebang. And that was
So sorry,
after,
I'm sorry. I got all these questions here, but like, is that something that naturally developed? I mean, it's one thing to say you look at a picture, okay, I got to get better, I got to get better shape. Now you're on stage, like there's a leap there I missed, isn't there?
so I think when you do this, right? So for years, I'd had get down below 10% body fat on my goal list for
Okay,
years. I can remember when you do the beginning of the year, you write it down, you're like, I'm going to do
yeah,
this again. I never did it. I never did it. And the question was, well, why? Why have I never done it? It's an admirable goal. It's something that's useful, but it never materialized. The question was why? Because there was nothing beyond that. There was nothing beyond what I wanted to do with that. It was just a purely aesthetic thing that
right,
actually had no drive and no motivation for me. So when I kind of set this goal, there was a few reasons why I wanted to do it. There was a few reasons why I wanted to do it. It wasn't about stepping on stage. That was the end goal. That was what I had to do. I had to get to that
right,
point to prove myself that I'd done the journey.
okay.
But the reasons I wanted to do it was a few things. Number one was stop talking and start doing that. Like just
I
get
love
and
it.
do something. Like there's just that
Have some
whole,
action.
like yeah, right. It's like, and then the question was, well, have you ever pushed yourself this hard before and this far before? And so there was almost this point where I was like, right now I've got to prove it. Now I've got to prove that I have the discipline and the willpower and the mental strength and the mental toughness and all those aspects. Not to anybody else, but to myself. I wanted to say that, I've done things in the past. Do I still have what it takes as a, 40 something year old person just growing? Like, do I still have that inner fortitude? And so that became then kind of an element of like, right, now you got to go for it. And you start saying it a little bit and people start to whisper, like, are you doing this thing? Um, so actually the stepping on stage it was a culmination of a journey, and it was a
Okay,
culmination
okay,
of ultimately about 14 months in the end of dieting. I wasn't huge, but I was out of shape, and there's a difference between being like lean and being stage lean, because those lights are bright and the fake tan that you got to put
yes,
on is very
yes,
glamorous. I'll sell it to you later. Doesn't leave anything hiding, right? So that that journey of it uncovering like how far could you push yourself
Right. Okay.
was one that I really wanted to test my limits. And then the
Mm,
other thing that I really enjoyed about it, and obviously I speak already about, kind of the mindset aspect of things. I really wanted to explore this idea of mental toughness further, not from a theoretical perspective. I've done the courses and read the books,
sure. Sure.
got the
Practically.
certificate. But yeah, it's that, right? Is you can know something theoretically, but you don't really know it until you've lived it
That's
and
right.
experienced it firsthand. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of reasons. And I just channeled it through this bodybuilding physics journey that just happened to be
Gotcha.
the one I want.
No, no, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so did you win? I guess that's the question. You got to say, did you win something? What'd you win?
So I did, what did I do? 4 competitions.
Okay.
Okay, 4 competitions last year.
And
First
how
one,
long does it take to prepare for a competition?
I was kind of a progression. So I prepared for the first one, took me about 14 months.
Okay.
And then I had a few in series. So I kind of relaxed and then went back
Got
again.
you. Got you. Got you.
But now it's about 12 to 16 weeks to prepare for a competition. I'll give you an example. I've got one on Sunday. So I'm in that final little sprint.
Got you.
But the first one was about, it just worked out as
Because
that.
you're just
Trying
getting into it, right? You were just
I
kind of
had no idea what to do. I literally
got you.
just
Got you.
going to the gym, trying to diet and just do all these things. And until it
I,
got closer and closer.
I wouldn't even know where to get the fake tan from, man.
I know. Luckily, I had a few people along the way that pointed me in the right direction.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so the first show I lost. And I knew I was going to lose it because A, it's my first show. I wasn't expecting to win it. But I also went into the competition was an untested. So I went up against people who were using kind of other stimulants and
Sure.
assistants. So I figured it wasn't a fair fight, but I wanted to get the experience. I wanted to dive in there. And I thought this was good. This is an interesting one. I thought on the day I was going to be completely outmatched, but actually I wasn't. I wasn't too far off. But I was a rookie, and you've got a sporting background. You can tell when a rookie goes up against a
Oh,
vet, right?
sure. Sure. Sure.
It's like the person with the experience, they don't have to try anywhere near as hard, and they're just going to beat just because experience pays a lot. But it was really good for me. I learned a lot. I learned kind of the panic that goes on backstage. I learned all of the things that go into getting on stage. Then I had another show in a couple of months, which I really wanted to do well. That was the natural one, and I did okay. I think I came third, which was, for me, I was super proud. I was just happy to step on stage because that was the ultimate end of the journey. I
Right.
thought, like, right, I've made it, yay! And to step on stage and get third in like a regional competition, I was proud of myself. The question then was, I thought, I'll do third. Like, can I do any better? And so that was it. And it was a little gap, and there was another competition in 3 months. I was like, should we do that? I say we. It's to my brother, he's my coach. Should we do that one? He's like, well, go on, and let's see what happens. So I did that one, and I qualified actually for the UK Championship. So this was a
Okay.
UK international championship of athletes from all
This is
across
a big
Europe.
deal.
Right? This is the biggest stage in natural bodybuilding in the UK, and I'm there in my first year. And I remember there's 10 people all made it to the stage, and I had some friends visit, and they were cheering me on, as they do, and shouting out random things like finger guns is a thing in body. And I think it was after the show. It might have been just before, but after I stepped on stage, all the things because he's got no energy, so everything just blurs. But my friend said, "Did you want to win? Did you want to win?" And this was an amazing question. It made me think. And the answer was yes. Of course, I wanted to win. I played sport my entire life. I don't think anybody in a sporting
Sure.
context ever gone into a game
Sure.
not wanting to win. So did I step on stage with those other 9 guys wanting to win? The answer was absolutely yes. Did I win? No. Why not? Because I hadn't been on the journey that they'd been on. This was my first year. And you can have confidence, you can have ambition, you can have all of these things. But unless you're willing to put in the work and do the journey, you don't have the right to even try and compete. And this was the thing that I learned. And so in my first year, I was just super happy to make it on stage. And I think I ranked about 6th or something like that in the UK. So I was like, oh, so proud of what I did. Did I win? No. But was I proud? Yes. Had I done the best I could? I think so. And I learned a load along the way. And so we went kind of back to the drawing board. And when I say the drawing board, that means we got a massive burger after and just sat down and said, what are we going to do? I said, we'll figure it out tomorrow. But then the question was, do I want to see if I can do it again, or do I want to push myself further? And it's always testing that limit, right? It's testing that limit. So yeah, this weekend I'm back on stage. I'll be putting the fake tan on and doing all the glamorous stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And have I improved? Yeah, I think so. And that's the goal, right? The goal is constantly pushing yourself to see what you can do, and stretching those boundaries and being proud of the effort that you put in.
I love the idea of just stretching those boundaries and going beyond what you thought was possible, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could describe what that feeling feels like when you get to the other side of the place you didn't think you could be. What does that feel like from your perspective?
I think it's different for everyone.
Okay.
I remember the first show, the kind of one that I really wanted to do, and I remember getting there, and I cried 3 times. This is weird, right? And I'm like, this guy, don't do it in public. Don't be it, just behind the scenes. And I
Right.
think there's a few moments, because nothing like this is ever smooth, right? Nothing like this is ever, an easy thing to do, and especially
Right.
at mid 40s, you've got responsibilities, you've got all these other things that are going on around you. So it's not like I can just live an entire life in the gym, despite what my wife thinks. And I think there was a few moments. The first one was, I remember being proud of myself. I can remember getting ready and getting dressed, and looking in the mirror and just recognizing the journey that I've been on. It was tough, and I don't know how often people feel proud of themselves like to that level, but I just, there was a moment, just I recognized it, and I kind of just gave myself a pat on the back. So I said, well done for getting.
Mhm.
Um, the other one was when you kind of immediately step off stage. There's just a
Yep.
feeling of relief that comes over you for having completed what you've just done. And so that was really nice. And then the other one was, I had my family there, like, and
Nice.
my wife was there, my mum was there, my little daughter was there, my brother was there, and my daughter has started calling me Daddy Muscles, which is hilarious because I'm the biggest guy. But it's that realization that and we're now at that point where I'm saying stuff to her and she doesn't listen, but she's watching, and it's that the legacy of what you leave behind, I think, is
Love it.
important as you get older. And so it's just that idea that, like, hopefully through my actions, I'm setting a good example.
Yeah, no, I think we absolutely are, and you're right. People are watching, not just your kids. I think everyone is watching, and that's why the encouragement of sort of being audacious is so important. Because if you can step out and try something you've never done before, forget about winning or losing, but just trying anyways. You're encouraging others, and in a sense, you're almost giving them permission to do the same.
Exactly.
Because it's like, well, Dan did it. Not against Dan, but I mean, Dan tried that and okay, it worked out. Or Dan tried that and it didn't work out, but he tried anyways. Why
Yeah.
can't I? Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that whole idea of people watching, it's really powerful because we can move mountains and not even know that because people are watching.
Yeah. And it's funny, like the conversations I've had. I'm not, I used to be a personal trainer. When I first came out of school, I went into personal training. I don't want to be a
Yeah,
personal trainer. There's amazing personal trainers out there. I don't
sure.
even think about my own exercises. I tell them, I get my brother to tell me what to do because I don't want to think about it. It's not, I love it and I love training, but I don't want to go into fitness advice. But when you just tell your story, it's like, this is what I'm trying. And then people would send me a message on WhatsApp, would say, hey, Dan, I went to the gym 3 times this week. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm super happy for you. But it's really, even just today, a friend of mine just sent me this picture. He's like, oh, check out my back muscles. I've been working out. I'm like, dude, go for it. And like you say, you just give people permission to push themselves a little bit harder. And it's,
Yeah.
I think the idea is that, and the idea is the infinite game, right? And Simon Sinek talks about it, Seth Godin talk about it, is we don't play to win. We play to play and raise the bar for other people. And I think if you've got good friends and you can encourage each other, and you kind of you can make fun of it and you don't take it too seriously, then you can encourage others to join the journey. And that's definitely been something that I've noticed, is people just say, okay, well, I'm gonna challenge myself a little bit more, see what we can do.
Talk about the hazards associated with being content with being average.
I don't think there's that many hazards. This is the thing. We get very comfortable, and let's say the trap of average in the book, right? The trap of average is, we get a good job, we start earning some money, we have a family, we get all these responsibilities, and we quickly develop this routine of comfort, right? And we get very comfortable, and we should be comfortable. That is a privilege in life, and not everybody gets to say that they're comfortable. There's a lot of people that don't have that.
Yeah.
So we should always say we're grateful. But then we use that to give ourselves permission to take the pressure off. So maybe I want to be better at something. Maybe I want to, earn more money. Right? Let's say me and you are having a conversation, and I say, oh, Audley, I want to earn more money. And you're like, yeah, Dan, that's a great idea. Yeah, I know, but I'm already earning more than so and so. and we talk it down. And so by comparing ourselves, we often let the pressure off. Okay. And so we then settle, and this is, the importance of having the people around you and your network is that they define some of the limits. But there's nothing wrong with wanting more. Like if I want to make more money, or I want to be healthier, or I want to study so I'm smarter, or I want to do something along those lines, there's nothing wrong with wanting more.
Right.
It's healthy. It's healthy. So, as long as you compare it to more than others. And I think this is the challenge, right? And so we get into this trap of success, this trap of average, where we're doing okay, but it's not good enough that we're like, yeah, I love my life every single day. It's never going to be that. But it's also not bad enough to want to change. And we look at success stories, right? We look at the rags to riches story, and we're like, yeah, that person had nothing. Of course, they went on to be successful. Or we look at the underdog, and we talk about like the Rocky story. Everyone's like, Rocky's never going to win, but you're cheering him on because you want him to win. He's got this one opportunity. Yes, and like we all get behind this, or we see this like this overnight success story, and we're like, oh yeah, of course that happened to them. They're massively talented, and of course there was only just a matter of time. And then we look at ourselves and we're like, yeah, but we're just average. None of those things are ever going to happen. We don't have such a bad situation that is going to push us out of it, but we're also not super happy with it that we really want to change. So we kind of get in this like, and compare.
Yeah.
And so we get stuck. And I don't think his life is so it's not about not staying there, but if we do stay there, then we never find out what we're truly capable of. And that for me is the sadness, is that we're all given talents and abilities and all of these things, and if we don't use them, then we end up at the end of our lives thinking, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd tried that. And this is the top regrets of the dead, is that they wish they'd taken more risks, or they wish they'd tried to do something that's a little bit more closer to their heart, or something along those lines. And that's I guess you get a bit older, you kind of get a bit more thinking about what's happening in the future. So I just get to that point where I'm like, I could have done that, I should have done that.
Right.
Like that's kind of language that I want to eliminate. So it's about challenging yourself to push it, see how much of life you can experience, and just how much enjoyment you can get out of this time that we've got.
My a friend of mine, she's a I think they call it the death doula, who sort of sits with people sort of in their final days sort of things, and they talk about, and oftentimes, and it's really just to have someone to help them through that journey, that last stage of their life, if you will. And she oftentimes shares some of the conversations, and the conversations are never around how much money I made or what I acquired or the physical things, because we know they don't come with us. The conversations are typically around the things that could have happened, or the relationships that I had, or the chances and things that I made. That's when it comes to the end of our days, those are the things that matter. And so I love the idea and the conversation around living regret free, and just living and not having to go whether the woulda, coulda, shoulda things, all that. You put that to the side and focus on, like, here's what I have in front of me. What have I done? And am I content with that? And so when you talk about our gifts and our talents, how we use those to our best of our ability. Because if we truly, truly have, I think that's where we can find inner contentment and peace.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. But and then as soon as you set that challenge, or you even start to think about it, the world has a way of punching you in the face. Right? Mike Tyson quote: "Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face."
Punch in the mouth, that's right.
And I'll give you an example. And it's interesting you said about your friend being death doula. One of the pieces of adversity, or one of the biggest challenges we had along the journey, was my stepdad died just before one of our shows, and he'd been my dad for 40 years. Like, I can't separate dad versus stepdad. He was one of my father, and he passed away after an 8-year battle with cancer, and that's life. And the question then is, what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about that? That would have been easy for me to say, okay, well, I'm going to use that as a permission to not go and chase this goal. Yeah. But actually, in reality, he was one of my biggest supporters. Like, he was involved in the whole process. And so, and like, I said about the tears aspect, that was one of them. It was just the recognition that my family is there, not necessarily in person, but, and watching and observing. And it was to do that. It was to honor his engagement and his belief and his reinforcement. And so, anybody who's listening to this, you've got excuses. If you want an excuse, you don't have to look very far. Right, just the world's going to give you so many outs. It's like driving along a freeway, right? Oh, here's the exit, here's the exit, here's the
Yeah.
exit. It's like, just take it. If you don't want to go, it just. But if you stay on the track, like that's where things happen. You don't always know what's going to happen, but like, don't take what you have.
So as you talk about your stepfather, reminded my own father, who passed away several years ago. Oh, gee, it's probably been almost 25 years. And we had, so my parents had split up when I was quite young. And so most of my growing up life, I had no idea who my father was. I didn't meet him until my eldest daughter was like 6 months old. And at the time that I met him, he was quite sickly. And then he passed away 3 or 4 years later. So that time we had together wasn't very long. But what was really interesting is as we were forming this relationship, I didn't know initially he was ill. So I wasn't trying to expedite this. Let's get caught up. Whereas he was on that clock. And when he finally said, "Yeah, I'm not doing too well, and this is what's going to happen to me," kind of thing, I was like, "Oh." And I was more intentional about this relationship. And through that process of learning about him, I started to realize that we were more alike than I had even known. And sometimes you'll say, "Oh, I get this from this person," or I realize, "Oh, I know exactly." I now had a full picture of what exactly came from my mom and what exactly came from my father. And and I remember long afterwards saying, "Well, then he's not here, but it's incumbent on me to be the person who I'm supposed to be, because really it's an extension of him." And that's how you keep the memories and the spirits of our lost loved ones alive, right? And so it's just another layer of why we've got to be who we're supposed to be and take the steps we're supposed to take and go on the journey that was intended for us, because of all the other things that associated with it.
So I learned a lot in that period, right, about myself, about how to act, how to be a man, so many things.
Yeah.
And I think you make a lot of decisions in those times. But yeah, it was I got a few funny looks. You turn up to the funeral and you're just eating your food out of the Tupperware. Everyone understood. Everyone understood that. Okay.
That's hilarious. You touched on mental toughness earlier. Let's talk about that, because it's some will say, "Well, hey, I wasn't born mentally tough. I don't know how to do it." You can develop it, right? And there's things that you can do to build. I guess there's some key things that you can do to help become mentally tough if that's not naturally inclined to you. I wonder if you can talk about what those things look like.
I think I've been coaching a lot of people on mental toughness. It's been widely researched scientifically, and you're nerdy enough to want to go and read the scientific papers, and you can. But they've shown it's applicable in business and entrepreneurialism and sport and academia and all these kind of things. The work that I've been doing with clients who want to be kind of more mentally tough it's interesting, because when I first started studying it, I thought it'd be like going to the gym. They've researched, you can do these things, and if you train yourself this way, then it'll turn up and you'll be more mentally tough. And I think you can. There are things you can do, you can develop yourself. But what I find is that actually it's very difficult to build mental toughness without revealing it at the same time. So you can't separate the doing from the building. So for example, let's say you want to develop discipline. How do you develop discipline, like as a concept? You can't just read a book on discipline. So, okay, well, I understand now how to be disciplined. You've got to do something that challenges your discipline. So for me, you may have read the 5 a.m. Club book. I think it's Robin Sharma. It's like, I got that book because everyone was doing 5 a.m., right? You got The Rock, you got Mark Wahlberg, everyone's getting up at 5 o'clock, and I thought I'd try it, I'll give it a go. Everyone, all the people are killing it, they're getting up at 5 o'clock, let's do it. I got up at 5 o'clock, so I was going to die. Like,
why do I do it?
Right? Because my alarm is just, you're not sure if it's an alarm or a fire alarm or just something's going crazy. I tried it 2 days in a row. Next day I tried 5:30, it failed. Right? I was like, what is going on? How do these people do it? I can't do it. And then things shift, right? And then you're like, okay, well, how important is this goal to me? And we actually moved. We moved from the UK to Prague, and my wife went back to work after maternity and all those things. So our routine changed. And I tried doing the training in the evening, and it just wasn't working. We had no family time. So the only time that I had is 4 a.m.
Yeah.
It's an hour before 5 o'clock. And I'm like, is that the only time I've got? And if I want to complete this goal, that's where I've got to do it because I've got to get home to be a dad and have a job
Yep.
and do all the things. Okay, well, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And so for me, now every day is 4 o'clock alarm. Now, do I like it? No. Do I do it? Yes. Does it take me a little bit of a while for that caffeine to kick into the system and get me motivated and the eyelids to sometimes feel a little bit heavier? Absolutely. But am I in the gym pretty much every day?
That's hilarious that you can't do 5 a.m., but you can do 4 a.m.
Right? It's stupid. It makes no sense until you look at why you're getting up. And it's the question. The question is, are you committed to this goal? And if you commit to the goal, then do the thing.
Yes,
I can guarantee if you had to wake up at 3 o'clock to get on a flight, to go on holiday, to go and do something amazing, to do something super exciting, everybody wakes up at 2:59 waiting. They're waiting. 2:50, like, did I miss my alarm? Did I miss my alarm? They're doing that thing and they're waiting. And as soon as the alarm goes off, they hit go and they're up, right? Every single person who goes on holiday does that.
True.
Everybody.
It's so true. I can't think of a time I've ever missed a flight for something I want to go do. It's just never happened. I never missed a flight at all, but I'm just saying in general, even missed the alarm to get up. I don't need the alarm, just get up and go. And I think you're absolutely right. You're connected to that thing and something that you know it's going to bring you happiness, fulfillment, joy, all these wonderful things. So you naturally do it. I think that's a really really good illustration. A piece that you touched on that is sort of the family balance, right? Like there's a balance aspect that weighs into all of this too, right? And you've got to figure that out, which isn't always easy.
There's this idea of work-life balance, right? And this is massive on the internet. Is that let's take a Richard Branson, right? Richard Branson spends all his life on an island doing crazy publicity stunts, flying airplanes, balloons, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You ask Richard Branson, does he have work-life balance, like hanging out with friends and family on the island? It's like, absolutely. People want a shortcut. They think, okay, well, that's where I need to get to. And they don't look at the journey. So the question isn't like, do you have work-life balance? Because there is no work-life balance when you're coming up, right? It's work-life choices and focus. And we only have a certain amount of resource if we want to put it into a goal. You know, it could be time, it could be money, it could be energy, it could be whatever. And it's how we invest that during the time. And like everyone's seen that famous Amazon photo of Bezos in that. He's got like a cardboard written sign, but now he's this multi-mega billionaire who's just got more money than anybody can do anything. If you asked him what work-life balance was at those two different times, now he'll have an answer about work-life balance. Then he had a work-life choice. That was it.
Yes.
And we just have to choose how to invest our time and our resources. And so, you know, for me, it's, yeah, do I wake up in the morning? Yes. Do I have to adjust my sleep pattern or like wake up pattern so I don't wake up the family? Yeah, absolutely. Because if I wake them up 4 o'clock, they're not happy. Trust me. Made that mistake. But so that's my choice. And so I take that energy that I could use somewhere else. But where else am I going to use it? Am I going to use it in the evening watching Netflix or something? That's not positive. That's not really rewarding for me. Right. So, you know, it's that kind of element. So I think people are looking for balance before they've achieved balance. Yes. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to choose the things that are most important to us and focus all of our attention, energy, resource, time, whatever we've got to focus onto it, do that. So is it a perfect circle? Nah, it's not. But I think the more you lean into certain areas, the more value you get. And, you know, I talk about sacrifice in the book quite a lot. And a lot of people think sacrificing, oh no, you know, it's goats and virgins, right? We have this bad image of just sacrifice in that way. But what I like to think about for sacrifice is like a chess player. And I'm no chess player. I absolutely have no idea. But sacrifice for them is strategic. If I can lose a piece here to gain a strategic advantage on the board, then I'll do that every single time. And that's what, for me, sacrifice is. I'm sacrificing like waking up at 4 a.m. That's a sacrifice, right? That's in anybody's book in order to get something else. And so I'm making that's my work-life choice. That's my life choice. Am I taking from somewhere else to reinvest? And people do this all the time. I read an article the other day. You know, if you drink alcohol, you're borrowing time and energy from tomorrow. Like that's one of the things. Like a hangover is just borrowing time and energy from tomorrow the next day. Right. I'm just doing the same, and I'm being a little bit more strategic and trying to say no to the things that are less important.
Gotcha. And part of that sort of putting all your cards on the table and figuring out what you got in front of you and what you want to focus on and being intentional about that, which I think is also quite cool. Last thing I want to touch on with you, Dan, and this is certainly a great chat. I really appreciate the insights. Is the idea of I was gonna say dreaming big, but even having big goals, I think they two work kind of hand in hand with one another in terms of having this thing that seems so unattainable and finding the steps to work through that. Talk about that process and what that's like, because that can be really fulfilling.
I've been reading loads about habits lately, and there's the Atomic Habits book, James Clear,
Yep.
brilliant book. And I think I was on a plane the other day. I saw his masterclass on Delta. I was like, brilliant, let's watch this. And it's perfect, right? If you do the habits, if you do things every single day, you're going to end somewhere, and that's great. But the question is where? And I had this goal of being a bodybuilder. This was my goal, but that's not where I wanted it to stop. The question is, why did I have that? And what I talk about really is again, we have this average life right now. What does your ideal life look like? What is your dream life? What is the vision of who you could be? What does that look like? Let's say in 3, 5, 10 years time, just pick it out, whatever time in the future. If you could do something and if you could change your life, what would you want it to look like? And we've got to have this vision for ourselves that's bigger than any goal. Like I said, I've got a goal of 10% body fat. Why? Why? It's got zero benefit to me having a goal. Like I know what the habits are to get to 10% body fat. I know all of those things, but I never did anything with that goal. Why not? Because it didn't contribute to a larger vision. And for me, the reason I do fitness and the reason I challenge myself to do bodybuilding and the reason I come and do podcasts like this is because I want to use my story to inspire people, right? I want to, like you said earlier, is I want the stupid, crazy things that I've done and the challenges I've gone through mentally to get to this point.
Yeah.
I want that to be a story that inspires and opens possibility to other people. I want them to learn from the dumb mistakes that I made along the way, not just in fitness, but I want them to learn that, you do have to have this vision for yourself that is bigger and not console yourself, say, well, I'm already better than that. Like just stay in the trap of average, but challenge yourself. And this is really difficult, right?
Yeah.
You got to hold dissatisfaction, which is quite negative, with comfort at the same time without them canceling each other out. It's a challenging thing to do. Then as soon as you set that goal, you got to realize that the demons inside are going to come in and say, yeah, but it's not going to happen. And you've got to build that mental, there's a gap between your current identity and your future identity, and you've got to cross that gap. And that comes from constantly doing the work on visualization and the discipline of showing up, of listening to the mental like torture that you go through and finding a way to reframe that in your mind. And I think the last thing that people need to realize is that to go from here to here, it takes some work. And I'm sorry to say it, but it is, right? And it's not necessarily about hustling. It's not about kind of just throwing everything in, but you've got to put work in it. And I don't know about you, but as a kid, I was like, let me see if I can shortcut this. Let me see if there's an easy way of doing this, a hack, right? Everything's about hacks.
Yes.
Like, can't hack anything. Like, can't hack anything. You can't hack fitness training. You can't give somebody else precepts to do, right? You've got to do it yourself. And so what does that look like? And especially, as you get older, you've got to make choices.
Sure.
How do you say no to some things so you can say yes or hell yes to certain other things? And how do you play that game and balance everything out? And then it just becomes a matter of time, right? This is where the habits come in, is if you're doing the thing daily and if you're pushing yourself and you're constantly measuring yourself and getting better in whatever it is you want to get better in, whether it's fitness, whether it's business, whether it's creativity, whether it's relationships, having a measure, like measuring that over time, you're gonna succeed. And succeed isn't comparing it to somebody else. It's just you're gonna grow, you're gonna stretch, you're gonna learn, you're gonna become a better version of yourself. So there you go.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. I really do appreciate that the insights there, and I think you're bang on so much of what you said. And again, knowing that it starts in our heads, right? That's where it all begins and ends, and sometimes that's bigger than the physical challenge, right? Like the physical. We know how tough the physical is, but the mental is what kind of gets us where we get to. So
the physical takes some work, but it's the mental that you just gotta keep believing, and you can't always do that yourself, and that's why things like this, the podcasts are brilliant. So keep doing the work you're doing. You're giving people a seed of belief every single time they tune in, and that's going to keep them recognize that they can reach their goals if they keep putting that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I should also commend you as well. You're a podcaster and an author. Tell us about your book and your podcast.
Yeah, I've got the book here and the kind of personal transformation blueprint with effectively the little goldfish going from a small goldfish bowl to a big goldfish bowl. It's just that, right? It's the the documentation of the mental journey of
Mhm.
achieving something big. So like I said, starting with that imagination, the expectation transformation that you have to
Yep.
go through to raise the expectation that you've got for your life, not just to go through life and not make a noise, but to actually make an impact, do something with your legacy, and realize everything big. Secondly, is that kind of mindset transformation of growing as an individual in here and becoming the person. So goals are not about reaching the goal, right? They're about becoming the person who can reach those goals, but recognizing that our identity is the gap comes as soon as we set that goal. And for many people, whether you call it imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
or fear of fraud, or like that kind of thing, fear of failure, we've got to overcome that. And everybody goes through that, but most people allow it to kind of knock them off track and knock them back and say, "Oh, I'm not going to do it because I haven't, figured it out first time." You're never going to do that, right? So just keep going, keep putting the work in. And then the last one is that work rate transformation. I think that's the big one that a lot of kind of people are trying to shortcut. Is you can't shortcut stuff. You can't shortcut stuff. It takes time for a acorn to turn into an oak. And there's a great quote: "Is in the world's greatest salesman" by Ogmandino. He says, "I've lived as an onion plant. It has not satisfied me. An onion plant is old in 6 weeks. I'd rather be the greatest of olive trees and in truth the greatest of salespeople." It's that idea that we can do tiny little things and we can,
Yes.
we can win small, and it can be done quickly. It's boring. Let's challenge ourselves to do something super meaningful in life and challenge ourselves to get outside of our comfort zone.
That's the way to do it, man. That's the way to do it. For listeners that wanted to connect with you or get a copy of your book or check out your podcast, where can we send them?
If you want to get a copy of the book, it's on Amazon. So check out Personal Transformation Blueprint or search my name, Dan Storey, in Amazon. And if you want to connect with me, then all of the podcast articles and everything are on danstorey.com. But yeah, Audley, this has been phenomenal. Thanks again for the energy. Just this conversation has got me even more excited, and it's taken away that feeling of exhaustion that I've got coming up ready for this for this weekend.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm trying to push myself. I'm trying to challenge myself. I'm trying to build on last year because it's a journey, right? So let's stay on the journey. Let's keep encouraging each other, and let's see what we can achieve.
Amazing. Well, amazing. Well, look, Dan, first off, all the best this coming weekend. Hope you crush it and do very well. And thank you for the time. And take care, my friend.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for having me on the show.
Back we are here on the podcast. And, in our conversation with Dan today, we learned that true mental toughness comes from overcoming doubts and pushing ourselves beyond what we think is possible. By setting audacious goals and committing to them, we can unlock our full potential and achieve extraordinary results. For those looking to dive deeper into mental toughness and personal development, I encourage you to connect with Dan directly. His contact details can be found in the show notes below. Keep an eye out for special offers and products that Dan has, including personalized coaching programs that he offers. And he'll also make resources available to help you enhance your mental strength and achieve your goals. Thank you for tuning into the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please follow, like, share, because these are the things that help this podcast continue to grow and allows us to inspire even more individuals live their most audacious lives. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations, and remember, audacity leads to greatness. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.